I want to talk about dependence today because I think that in the Christian sense, in terms of how God created us, that we were made to depend on Him. Now, there are two types of independence that I would like to point out. One is I, me, myself, and one is Christ in me. So when I say dependence, I'm not talking about depending on another person, but on Christ. Do we realize that Christ is the bridegroom and the church is His bride? I mean, can you imagine the amount of dependence this signifies? That this is not only something that He created for us, but it's also a symbol of His love for us and how we should love Him. The church as a bride of Christ has to be interlinked to each other. We need to live in harmony. We need to, not depend on each other, but we need to be one unit. But as a church, we really need to latch on to Christ. And that involves a lot of vulnerability and a lot of admitting that we are weak and He is strong. Just look at this verse in Psalm 73 verse 26. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Like it or not, we depend on our heart, physical heart, to live. And without it, we just cannot survive. If God is the strength of our spiritual heart, it's even more important that we lean and depend on Him. Christ has taken the back seat in our lives. It's become more of a God help me rather than hey God, what are you thinking about today? What do you want for me today? I think it's really beautiful how God has created us to depend in Him. When Christ says, I'm the vine and you are the branches, and apart from me you can do nothing, I think it's really amazing that we can be created in such a way that we have to be so attached to each other. And why I think it is so beautiful is because the Lord is beautiful. Everything about His nature is pure and holy and true. There is nothing spoiled and corrupt about it. Depending on the Lord, it really is like a marriage of two hearts. Trust me, I love to be independent. I love to take care of myself and to not be viable to anybody. But it's very different with God. If this is a hard topic for you, I encourage you to study more about God and who He is. Because when you realize everything that God is, any kind of connection to this being is only a blessing. The verse which says, worship God in the beauty of His holiness, describes a bit of His beauty. I know it is hard to admit to yourself, I can't do this. I need a higher being, a higher power. It's hard because we have that tendency in us to want to be the end of ourselves. But when we realize the ends of God, which are so much further than anything we can reach, and that we have the authority and ability to reach that through Him, why not? Why not be queens and kings in Christ? Christ offers such power and glory and authority to anyone who depends on Him that it becomes more of a joy to depend than the relationship of a slave. I feel like people are scared to expose their innermost parts to God because they know it is not pretty. It's hard for me, honestly, to every day say, God, I am not worthy, I am not powerful, not strong. But this is too much of I, me, myself. Why not be Christ sufficient? You do not realize how much you are missing without depending on God. Dependence to you may sound like weakness, but when you do it in God, it is strength. It is like joining forces with the highest power of the universe. Together, you can do things that even your amazing brain could not fathom. And that's why I think dependence is beautiful. This is Vihan Damaris on Serious Sundays, signing off.